Welcome to Stormwatch by Grey Noise Intelligence. Each week, we cover the latest info on what's happening at Grey Noise Census, Vulncheck, and Run Zero. Take a look at a roundup of important and timely cybersecurity topics, toss out some expert opinions, and drop the occasional conspiracy. It's VulnCon Day, and in a moment, we're going to talk live with our Stormwatch correspondent, Todd, who is also speaking at the event. But today, we finally summon up the courage and stomachs to tackle the recent CrushFTP kerfuffle, one of many and increasingly frequent instances which may show that both coordinated vulnerability disclosure and CVE in general are fundamentally, permanently, irrevocably broken. Speaking of permanently broken, NVD is leaning into a legitimate but now abused CVE status indicator to brush aside their processing backlog, which may potentially leave organizations blindsided by legacy weaknesses. AI is most certainly coming for all of our jobs, but not necessarily in the way you might think. So the crew will also take a look at what some clever yet concerning campaigns that have come across the news cycle in the past couple of weeks. And finally, we all earn our keep by showcasing the latest happenings from our benevolent Cybele feudal lords. It is, as I said, before we go into the normal show and before we actually talk about like the vibe check for everybody, we need to check in with our correspondent at VulnCon. We're gonna see if we can bring Todd up right now. Oh my goodness, it's chaos at VulnCon. I can't believe it. Oh my goodness, I can't. What is happening? Todd, are you okay? I hope Todd made it out of here. I knew VulnCon was going to be a bit controversial this year. I did not realize it would be this controversial. Hopefully, it kind of we're getting word. We're getting word on the street. Todd, you made it. Oh, you made it out.
Wow.
Thank goodness.
Wow. That was crazy, Bob. That definitely happened.
All right. So enough of that.
I have to hide my face. So
all right.
Extremely visual bit for the audio list.
Yeah, for the audience, it was a bit. You should just watch it for a second.
Was that
this whole show's a bit.
The blob? I want to say
that was yes, very good, Todd. That was from the blob.
Colorized version of the blob.
Yes, it was the colorized version of the blob. Otherwise, people would not have believed it. And because people did believe it for a second, I bet everybody did because it's chaos at VulnCon.
Very good.
We're gonna do the vibe check. Might as well, Todd, since we brought you in live and you had a bit narrow escape from death there. How's it going? Vibe check.
Going great. Went to a highlight of the week so far was the Stormwatch Grey Noise Vulncheck happy hour last night. So I got into town yesterday, hung around VulnCon for a couple hours, then went to happy hour, which is my way, I guess.
All a day's work.
Yes. Whew, and boy, are my arms tired. And yeah, it was super great. I'm very happy to be here. VulnCon was weirdly successful. This is the second year for VulnCon, and it was weirdly successful the first year in that people showed up and were being sincere and actually trying to solve things and meet people, and the whole vulnerati gets together here in a way that's very unlike I said vulnerati.
Vulnerati like Illuminati or
yeah. Like glitterati and
Maserati.
Yeah.
Thank you. But I don't know, it's such a different vibe from RSA and Black Hat and InfoSec Europe, right? Where it's we're all just here to talk about vulnerabilities and what we can do. So it's I don't know, it feels like a very kind of good guys conference. So that's my thing.
That's awesome.
Well, I hope they're not watching today's show because
I'm sure they're all busy. They're in talks right now.
Yeah, they're all doing stuff. It's great. And I believe I will ask her this so she can answer. But Overwatch, I believe, is there too. So we'll see what her on the floor reports are too. Having fun at VulnCon, nice. That's awesome.
The period. Having fun at
VulnCon. I don't know why that sentence got me, but.
We're at VulnCon and we're having a great time.
The capitalization, the period, it all just
everything, just perfect, absolutely perfect. Kimber, it looks like you're first of all welcome. Good morning, and you're not at VulnCon. It looks like. Are you there in spirit?
I am spiritually at VulnCon. I didn't realize that this was the sleeper hit of the year for all of the vulnerati. So, I'm seeing, a lot of people there, which is very cool. I will say my one thorn with it is so many people are giving multiple talks. And does this mean that not enough people submitted talks about vulnerabilities to this conference? Question mark? Hot take? I don't know.
Is it possible then that people felt too vulnerable giving a talk that they could not give a talk on vulnerabilities?
I think this is a conference about vulnerability, and human emotional vulnerability counts as well. So yes, that's probably.
Is it possible that people had submitted talks but then are no longer able to give those talks because of job changes?
You know, I'm not going to point any fingers, but that's definitely a possibility. Maybe they were scrambling. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, never know. So vibe check with you too, Kimber.
Vibe check. Vibes are good.
That's cool.
The vibes
are
good. Glenn, since I didn't see you yesterday, hello. How's your week going?
Hello. I didn't think about this morning. So Bob was pretty much out of the office yesterday, and this morning I was like, yesterday was like a nice calm day, and I didn't realize the correlation there. But yesterday was a good day, Bob.
Okay, I will not show up to work more often, Glenn. That I can do that. That's not a problem. And vibe check with you today, sir, so you don't steal Image's vibe check.
Vibes are good. I have so Tuesdays have become, at least for the month of April, pickleball day, and so I have my third pickleball class.
You are such a millennial right now.
I know, and I'm totally buying into why people are obsessed with it. It's fun. Also, I've learned I have weak ankles, so I got to strengthen my ankle a little bit. But no, it's fun. It's fun.
Did you get proper paddles now? Did you finally?
I did. I did get proper paddles. My first class.
Are they paddles or rackets? I do not know what the proper terminology for pickleball.
I think they're paddles.
Okay.
Yeah, they're paddles. But no, it's great. It's fun. It's different. So yeah. I look forward to Tuesdays.
And you're not a Volcon.
I am not a Volcon. I am in spirit. I was hoping to go, but I didn't. I was hoping to submit, but I didn't. So it's been busy here, Bob. It's been busy.
A little bit, just a little bit. Image, first of all, epic hat. Epic hat. For people that aren't watching this, you should watch it just for the hat.
Thank you.
Just saying that.
Hat bait.
And are you spiritually also at Volcon?
Spiritually, I'm not really on this earth.
Fair.
But if there's like a Volcon on Mars, I think I'm there.
What if Elon shows up there?
I don't think he's invited to my Volcon.
Well, you can join me in my spaceship through space that's a dumpster on fire. If
that looks cozy, nice and warm.
I don't know where we're going, but we're going somewhere.
I'm just recasting Himija into the role of Dr. Manhattan now. It's the year 2025. I'm at Volcon and on Mars.
Sitting there pondering humanity. So any vibe check for you, Himija?
I actually prepared something today. I had a great time over the weekend at the New York City Antiquarian Book Fair that I am still on a high from. And on the topic of Project 2025, or maybe not that, maybe just everything, I got to see the original like Einstein Szilard letter. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but basically it's where Albert Einstein is like a typewritten letter. It's so cute. Where Einstein wrote the president at the time, who was Roosevelt, and he was like, "Hey, bestie, I think you need to know a little bit more about atomic bombs and about nuclear fission, but great news, like I'm here and all my physicist friends are here to help you learn, and so that we can figure out what that means for, the country, and figure out if like war is happening. Oops, what do we do?" And it's like 2 pages, and it's super sweet letter about nuclear bombs. And it was just cool to see it up close. I don't know. I love seeing history like that, especially when it's so well preserved.
That sounds cool. I'm obsessed with Image's new life. I'm very jealous.
That also is like a very perfect summary of that letter. Very good.
Yeah.
Hey, bestie.
Verbatim, that's what it said. I was there.
That letter has culminated into right now someone having the control of over 5,000 nuclear warheads and has yet to mention the word nuclear in any speech. So I can't wait for that to happen in the next month or 3. It's gonna be great.
What?
I am not spiritually at VolCon. I'm not spiritually at any cons this year, or physically, hopefully, any cons.
You have to have a soul to.
Yes, that's true. That is very true, and it's like I have many people that will swear that I do not have. I do have a vibe check, which is a positive vibe check that also involves it's very minutely involves pickleball. I have a pickleball statement for it too. So yesterday I had the chance to. I was not at work yesterday. I took a unusual day off to not actually take a day off and go lecture at University of New England. The data science folks there asked me to do a lecture on data viz, and I used as I was telling Todd before, I used the opportunity to try to radicalize a whole bunch of youths because that's who you radicalize if you can do it.
That's what I hear they do at college.
Yeah, you have to try to do that. It was great fun. Actually, it was great being amidst folks that are still bright-eyed and have some positive outlook on even today, even in this day and age, have a positive outlook on the world. And they were very engaging and pretty cool to hang with. But the pickleball tangent is on the way home from the school. I did notice that one of the formerly run down portions of Biddeford, Maine, which is the outside city area where UNE is nestled on the coast from, there's a new pickleball. It looks pretty swanky pickleball court coming in July of this year. So Glenn, if you start to get good at pickleball and you go on the road because
I won't be.
A pickleball star, you could come here and practice if you want.
I'm not good at anything that involves movement, but I try.
I don't know about that.
I can walk pretty well.
That's true. We have a podcast. Overwatch. I did not go because you already interjected, but Overwatch would love it if y'all would click on the subscribe thing, put your address in there, and do that. We've actually had a lot more people subscribing to all of our stuffs for whatever reason, so thank you for that. Keep doing that, and on the channels, likes and subscribes, all the things. If you could possibly do that, that'd be great. We have though, the next week you gotta turn in. Everybody has got to turn into this. We have another guest next week. For folks that are out there, InfoSec Sherpa will be joining us. If you don't know who that is, you can find out next week. Yahoo! If you do know who this is, you should definitely tune in because you're going to.
If you don't know, you should know, and if you know, you know.
Yes, you do. And before you do that, you can also go to Sherpa Intelligence on Substack and subscribe to a really timely, well put together newsletter. One of the things that, because Tracy does this, I no longer have to scour the internets. Between Feedly and Tracy, I no longer need to do any research on the internet. It's great. They do it all for me. It's awesome. And we also, before we get into the swing of things, it's just nice to have an I told you so against giant corporations that won't have an impact on, but it's just nice to just revel in the fact that they do suck as much as they do. So Oracle for weeks has said, no, there was no breach, despite the fact everybody was crawling out of the woodwork going, but I have evidence, and they're nope. And today, Glenn just showed me really quickly this morning, so I had to put it up. Oracle has confirmed a breach. They've officially confirmed a cybersecurity breach in which hackers infiltrated its systems and stole client login credentials. So, yay. I just need to ask the crew, is anybody surprised at this? Did you actually believe Oracle or nothing?
No, did not believe Oracle at all.
I mean, I wanted to give time for an appropriate response, but it was kind of initially just hard no with mounting evidence. So that grace was eroded very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I was waiting for some set of weasel words to say it wasn't really Oracle, right? And that didn't happen. So.
Yeah.
So do we believe them ever again? They're not trustworthy. Giant corporation has a lot of products, lots of vulnerabilities in other products. We can't trust them for anything anymore. It's great. Awesome. We appreciate that, everybody. Awesome. And also, this is bad. So then we were talking about this pre-show and everyone seemed to have a positive attitude about it. I have a different one, that when 3 different social media networks that are made up of completely different types of individuals all agree on something, that's probably not a good sign. I think it's a terrible sign. I think it's a sign that the world's coming to an end. But since we're doing a show about vulns and CVEs, we asked everybody, and Jordan, thank you so much for doing all this work, because I will never log on to X and that you and you suffer there so that we don't have to. NVD's data is delayed now. So how are you prioritizing? And we're going to learn about that in a little bit. How are you prioritizing CVEs? And every single, so between Mastodon, between Blue Sky, and between X, Zitter, or whatever, exploited in the wild is how everyone is prioritizing CVEs. Does that shock anybody on the crew here? Anybody just completely bewildered that there was a convergence of that's how people are prioritizing stuff?
Not
I don't
a
think it's
surprise.
particular. Oh, go ahead. Timber.
Yeah, no, not a surprise at all. But I would like to highlight the 20% of people on both. That's Blue Sky, right? Not InfoSec.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Blue Sky and Twitter that rely on gut and Google searches, and I would love to know their process around vibe exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
Todd, are there any talks on vibe exploitation at VolnCon this year?
There is not. I'm working on a talk and a paper and a whole bunch of other stuff for NorthSec, which is out in May in Montreal, assuming I'm allowed to go and return from Montreal.
And that Canada exists.
Uh-huh. But I'm doing research this week on this very talk and this very notion of vibe exploitation, because I do think that this is like kind of how advanced prediction systems are all like kind of underpinned on that. Having already been exploited in the wild is great if you're as an indicator of you might be next, assuming like you're not in that first group. Like if you're in the first wave, then like good luck, I guess. It's not a great indicator of the future if you're currently experiencing it.
I think the one really fun thing is that every single organization represented on Stormwatch cares deeply about exploited in the wild and focus on that and try to provide instruction around that. Kimber Vonchek has its own enhanced version of Kev, which has significantly greater coverage for lots of different reasons, because Kev has guidelines that they have to actually stick by. But you guys have a lot of really good ones. We actually have a paper coming out based upon your Kev as well too. So we're talking about that. Census, you are always on top of these new vulns to let people know what the exposure is, help organizations get rid of their exposure of it. That's amazing. And we tell you about stuff that's being pwned all the time. So I'm glad to see people care about that, and you can turn to each one of us. Yes, I am pimping our services because we do actually like to get paid. It's really
the last thing to mention on the exploited in the wild thing is I am very excited for the conversation to start evolving. Like, since we have over 50% of people, and like in the case of LinkedIn, like I would say primarily everybody who responded is looking at exploited in the wild. But then exploited in the wild breaks down into what kind of exploitation. Like, is it centered around phishing? Is it centered around botnets or ransomware? So,
maybe we should do a follow-up poll on that. What's what inside that category, since they all had the same thing? What did they care about? And that might be interesting to see the breakdown by different types of social media users.
Yeah.
See what happens. So we need to talk about CrushFTP. We have a link up here that's from Security Week. 2 CVEs, 1 critical flaw inside the CrushFTP vulnerability controversy. And I'm bringing this off the screen because we need to talk about this. Kimber, I know you guys probably don't want to go into excruciating detail, although you do have, like, although your company has said some things about it. Can you give us a non-controversial, or if you want to dig there, that's fine too, but can you give us like an overview of like what exactly happened here so we can set the stage for the discussion?
I think vendor mad vulnerabilities happen. Vendor mad vulnerabilities happen. Maybe not want to admit vulnerabilities happen. And then a bunch of wires get crossed and vulnerabilities are in fact happening and serious. So we try and responsibly disclose things, let the vendors know with plenty of time, et cetera. And then this just things get weird from there because people take it strangely personally, I think, or like maybe want to protect reputation, something around those lines. Yeah, that's like an intro to this situation.
I was gonna say, I don't know. We may need, if people don't know the backstory there, at least to lay out the order of events for what Kimber's referencing.
Oh my God, this is like weeks ago at this point in my brain. I'm so sorry. So I'm like,
I got it.
you
I
probably
will
have
give.
a better timeline than I do.
Well,
at this
Ed Kovacs did a really good job. And that I said that like he never does. Ed does a great job. I wasn't meaning it that way. He did it. This is a really tough subject, and Ed did a great job not like weaving a good, impartial, just fact-based story instead of leaning into some of the hype stuff that lots of news rags do. And Ed didn't do that. So on March 21st, the developers of CrushFTP Enterprise File Transfer Solution, I think that's becoming a thing this year again. I know it never really wasn't a thing, but I saw some stuff coming through our Feedly stream about more file transfer things having more vulnerabilities. So I really hope this isn't a repeat of like the other year when that was like the theme of the year, because it's just so annoying. And there's also some new software that I didn't see in Feedly with that too. So it's great that there's all these niche things out there. Anyway, they inform customers that versions 10 and 11 are affected by a critical vulnerability that exposes systems to remote hacking. An attacker can leverage the flaw to bypass authentication. Yay. Again, and gain admin access to impacted CrushFTP instances. They had patches for that as well too, but no CVE was announced at the time of those patch drops. And so 5 days after that, Voncheck, who knew about this and had information about this, they wanted the community, who we live and breathe and die by CVEs. So having a CVE is really important. Yeah,
they knew people knew because Crush had sent out an email to their
right. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, they had an email, but they didn't know that there was no CVE. And that's
right. There was no CVE,
everything.
but there was an email that's just
everything.
Like, go
and
do
like
thing.
5 days later, crickets. So Voncheck was like, we know that the community enterprises, the world lives and breathes and dies by this. This is the way we formalize the announcement of things. You issued a CVE number because you're a CNA. We've used you as a CNA. You're a great CNA. Todd is also a great CNA. And so you did that. They were, as Ed puts it, CrushFTP was not happy with the decision, saying that that the real CVE had been pending. And indeed, roughly 10 days earlier after disclosure, they told Security Week that they had a different CVE number for it, which is assigned by Outpost 24, who was accredited with responsibly disclosing the flaw. They had a blog, Outpost had a blog. They clarified it for the CVE. They were going to keep it under wraps for 90 days, even though there was the patch going out well before the 90 days. So this is like, I'm going to call this uncoordinated disclosure. And I just like to ask Todd, is that fair? Is my framing of this as uncoordinated disclosure fair?
The bizarre part, right, is that Voncheck noticed, right, they discovered the vulnerability in the same way you discover a cool Thai restaurant down the street from your house, right?
You just stumble upon it.
What's that?
You just stumble upon it.
Right. Yeah. It's like, oh, cool. So found a vulnerability, had no CVE, and asked around other CNAs and said, hey, is this gonna get a CVE anytime soon? I was like, not mine, not mine, not mine. So they're like, cool, we'll do it. And so the bizarre part here is this insistence from Outpost 24, who's not a CNA, can't write their own CVEs, and CrushFTP that's like, oh no, we have one. And it's like, okay, cool, what is it? And it's like, well, we have one. I'm like, okay.
Well, and then there was like a bunch of back and forth about like this is not the same vulnerability and all this stuff in the background.
Right. And like, but like, even still, it seems like from Ed's story here is that the plan was we're going to release the patch, we're going to acknowledge the vulnerability, but we're going to withhold a CVE for 90 days, not just details of the bug, but like the CVE ID itself.
Right.
So
which not like CVE is the key for every vuln management product.
Nobody
or
cares
everything.
what the CVE number is. Right?
Yeah, it's very strange. The fallout from this has been really interesting too, because now there are two CVEs that are effectively the same thing. And so that's the part that I've like been more read in on personally, is like the community itself, like, okay, this is a very high profile product because it's file transfer protocol. Like, who knows?
Has gotten attacked before, will get attacked again.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like, who knows where in the environment this is if it hasn't gotten attacked yet. Because every time there's a new big FTP vulnerability, like more people find out that suddenly they have Move It in their stack somewhere. So like the community had eyes on this, and I think that was very like a very interesting aspect of it, because this definitely happens in other vulnerability spaces.
Sure.
I think as MITRE is going through the backlog and stuff, like there have been duplicate CVEs that's happened before, but this is a very like high profile duplicate CVE situation.
Well, as soon as you mention CrushFTP, because we're basically at the 1 year anniversary of the last like Mamma Jamma, everyone perks up. So it's already had its like learn about the product because of a big bad vuln and ransomware actors last year. So when it pops up, everyone starts clamoring for that CVE.
Right.
And again, like I said earlier, like it's the key for so many vuln management programs. So yeah, there's a patch. There was the email, which this is also never an encouraged approach to disclosing vulnerabilities, but an email to customers only that was kind of vague and didn't list out any real useful information. So basically then the industry starts clamoring for information, and everyone's trying to dig into it to do the right thing. And yet then there's this like bumper car situation just on the CVE number.
It is bumper cars.
Which feels like kind of a consequence of having so many CNAs out in the world. Is
Yes.
Like as more CNAs exist, then the more often that this kind of shenanigan is going to happen because of question mark. Like,
And that's the thing. It's totally okay, right? Like I would rather have more research CNAs specifically with very broad scope to say like what they can assign to. Understanding that occasionally you're going to have duplicates and you have to get rid of one, you have to merge them together, right? Typically, though, you don't merge the last. Like it's not.
I was going to ask about that. Because now it seems that the last, which was I guess the originally requested one that was kept under.
I mean, it wasn't reserved until a day after Vulncheck published.
Oh, was it? Okay.
The weirdness of this is Vulncheck has had the first reserved one.
Yes. Vulncheck reserved and published on, I think, the 25th of March. And then MITRE, because again, CrushFTP nor Outpost 24 are CNAs. So it was MITRE reserved the day after. And then published almost a week after. So like it was very strange. It was all very weird. And
yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Vulncheck is like we don't have any ego about like we need to name this.
Nobody cares.
Or whatever. It's just like, yeah, if you had told us you were going to reserve one like tomorrow, that would have been responsible disclosure, right? Yeah. And like coordinated disclosure, more importantly. So
why you wait until a week after the initial blog post from Crush saying that there is a vulnerability? I don't know. Like if it were me and I was controlling the vulnerability disclosure process, I would like have my CVE in hand. And you can publish CVEs that have like no info. Like look at Apple.
Exactly.
You definitely can.
Probably the major motivation, honestly, is like if we announce that there's a CVE, then there's only, I don't know, in this case, it probably would have been less than 24 hours for somebody to do a patch diff and come up with that exploit. So if CrushFTP understands that that's what's going to happen when they announce that there's a CVE and it's associated with these patches, that's like exploit development starts. So I'm wondering if they were trying to bypass that whole process,
Well,
gentlemen hackers attack vulnerabilities that don't have CVEs.
Right.
Like we all know this, right? Like that's just in the code.
Yeah, I think it's
that's
silly. It's silly how much importance is being placed on just the CVE ID. Like if the CVE is not being gold.
Well, no, but again, like so, I don't want to harp on that too much because I want to give him a chance to talk about the vulnerability and exposure on the internet. But so yeah, and Glenn, I think Glenn said it right. Defenders kind of need the CVE. We've all said that, but I want to just go back to something Todd said because like I'm not tracking it religiously because I have a day job and I do other things. So like I'm not always watching all of the things that MITRE does for all the things. But when I glance at like the regular announcements of, hey, we've added 7,000 new CNAs this week, because that's what it feels like. They're all vendors who are just going to who are not going to issue CVEs, because that's what vendors do now. They don't tell you about vulns. They just sneak things in patches, and they're becoming CNAs to cover things up. How many, to your thing, how many research, just pure research outfits, CNAs, is MITRE adding like every week? I think the percentage is like 0 compared
every
to
week is 0. I think that there might be 5 or 6 research CNAs total out of 400 and something. I think so, like about 2%. I think there might be more. There might be like 8 or 9.
So we're going to run into this in the future when vendors who are like, oh, I want to be my own CNA, so I control what CVEs can be put out for my thing, and then they just never release a CVE ever again because they're just going to sneak things in patches. Are we going to run into this situation more often now, where some really decent, honorable vendor decides we need to let everybody know about this vulnerability?
First off,
like
CrushFTP is not a CNA. They don't get it.
I know they are. I didn't say that.
And vendors, generally speaking, don't get to squash CVEs merely because they're a CNA. Like if I had a cool bug on Microsoft, if I had a cool bug on Microsoft and I say, hey, Microsoft, here's the thing. I have had exactly this situation. It's like, Microsoft, we think this is a vulnerability. Microsoft says, we don't. I'm like, Microsoft, we would very much like to issue a CVE. Do you mind? Microsoft, yeah, no, go for it. Just don't make work for us. I'm like, cool, done. And it just goes, right? Like, so we work it out because that's how coordination works. And so, and this has happened, like this is how it goes, right? So if you have something on Android or have something on Microsoft or have something on Apple or Oracle's a CNA, right? Like, and they're saying, if they are insisting that your finding is not a vulnerability and thus not worthy of a CVE, no problem. You escalate up or you go to somebody else who will. And that's how it's supposed to work.
And this was like a 9 on the CVSS, like it was a 9.8 auth bypass. Like it's a bad one and pretty straightforward too. So the thought of anything, like as soon as this leaks out, everyone's going to go to reverse engineer or patch diff it basically, because they released a patch pretty quickly, and it's not a super large program. And just thinking, what dream world where 90 days go by where this isn't exploited in the wild nefariously? That's very, very optimistic and would never happen. It would never go 90 days without a ransomware actor jumping in on this, which is what they were trying to push for.
So speaking of easy to exploit, Hemedja, before I give you a chance to talk about this, I just got to show everybody. I was going to wait till later, but I got to do it now. Your site makeover is just gorgeous. It's an epic site makeover. You guys just like you did a great job. Great job, Ellen.
Isn't it pretty? This was so much work. I did absolutely none of it, but I can say that it was so much work, and I'm so impressed with how it turned out. And if you haven't seen census.com, go look at it. There are fun animations now, and the colors are so much more soothing. That's what I like. Like this is just I feel calm, even though I'm reading about
you didn't go with
things.
Startup Purple. You did not go with Startup Purple. You have my respect just for that. No offense to anybody that is Startup Purple. It's everywhere, and you didn't lean in. That was great. So can you tell us about this vulnerability?
Yeah, so I think all the discussion about this is awesome. And I think it's also unfortunate that it panned out this way, because this is a really bad vulnerability. And I feel like all of the hubbub kind of is drawing attention away from that. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's making more people dial into it. But yeah, this is a 9.8 unauthenticated auth bypass. Basically, if you know the username of a CrushFTP instance, you can enumerate the passwords and other credentials, and then impersonate users and get access. And at the time we wrote this, it wasn't being actively exploited, but it got added to SysACAV yesterday. And so now we're seeing active exploitation where folks are, gaining unauthorized access and then installing like AnyDesk and Mesh Agent and all these random remote access tools and harvesting credentials. What we see, it's been a year almost exactly since the last CrushFTP thing that we reported on, and the exposure counts are pretty similar. They're pretty plateaued. We see around 7,500
Of course they are.
online, which is, I know, right? So that's, again, it's the whole question, like, are these real? Are they like, are people just leaving them on the internet and then forgetting about them? Who knows? But not all these are necessarily vulnerable to this vulnerability, but you know, it's an FTP file transfer tool. It should not be exposed on the internet. We have learned from Move It, right? Right? We have learned. But yeah, I think it's unfortunate how this all panned out. Because conflict around, like, the conflict between researchers and vendors around this process is nothing new, and I think everybody was trying to do the right thing here. But I hope that we can move past it and actually focus on defending against this bug now.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good, like, after the fact, like, regardless of what the CVE is, regardless of the existence of the vulnerability or not, there was also like a few good rundowns I was reading that were talking about like the variety of malware that was seen in some of the samples that was collected. Like, it's not just the same, thing over and over again. It was like a variety of ransomwares, a variety of like Telegram bot malware. Like, just, that was interesting. I hadn't heard anybody talk about the nuance of that yet, where it's like all of the different malwares that get thrown after using this exploit. It's not just like a singular threat actor that's hopping on this. It's like 8.
Because it's so easy to
Yeah,
exploit.
It's a box on the internet. Yeah, easy to exploit and probably has
You can
lots of
upload
storage.
anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to take a second to riff off of what Kimber just said, because we Gray Noise is at RSA. We have a booth. I think everyone, like, well, not everyone here is going that's on the podcast to be there, but our representatives from our companies will be. So I think we'll all be kind of hanging together to a degree there. If you go to our booth, you might be able to see some things about malware samples that we collect now that we haven't talked about before, but I'm not ruining the surprise at RSA. You got to go there and see it for yourselves, everybody. So, like, stay tuned for that, because the variety of malware samples might be a thing we get to talk more about on the pod in the coming year, on top of everything else. All right, so from one debacle to another, props to Voncheck for being the first ones to really publicly talk about this next topic.
Yeah.
I believe on LinkedIn, you guys are the ones that broke the story, because nobody monitors like the NIST blog, because it's not a really blog.
It's such a
The NIST log.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Patrick from Voncheck did a great LinkedIn post. We do not like I'll get the link in the show notes or something for everybody. And because it's really hard to keep up with the news updates on the non-RSS feeded NIST NVD site. And they just happened to quietly drop, without making a big fanfare about it, that they if there's a CVE that was before 2018-0101, it's deferred and they're not going to care about it. So you shouldn't care about it, because CVEs don't matter before 2018, I guess, because that's how our government tax money works these days. So this is great. So that means all the things from 2018 that have CVEs, they're never going to analyze them. So we're never going to get a potential advance warning of something that could be really bad, because they have never given it like a CVSS score before. This is great, because why not leave enterprises hanging in the wild with this particular thing? I think this is a great development, because enterprises shouldn't care about vulnerabilities. I think we're just learning that we just shouldn't care about vulnerabilities anymore.
I think that's a very spicy take. Like, that's an incredibly spicy take. I think it's better for them to issue a status on these things of like defer. I mean, this is like largely an uneducated take about the mine, like the consequences of things being deferred, because I have no idea what any of those CVEs are. Obviously, Patrick's been doing kind of a breakdown on them, but I think that got interrupted by VulnCon in a strange way. So I do wonder if he's talking about it with people there. But he was looking at the first 20,000 CVEs that were deferred, and it looks like a lot of them are absolutely ancient, which I think is like very, I don't like, I'm shocked that there are CVEs from 2005 still sitting in their queue. Like, Todd, what do you think that's about as a fellow extremely nerdy about vulnerabilities person?
I think that it is I don't know. I haven't talked to NVD about this. I'm planning to this week because there are NVD people here at VulnCon. But like, I think this deferred status is basically a throwing in the towel, saying like, hey, we never got to these. We're probably never going to get to these. The rate of new vulnerabilities being published is such that we are going to keep up on the new stuff, and you're kind of on your own. Good luck with the old stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't think it makes, so like when things are special, right? Like if you get like a 2018 or 2017 that shows up on the kev, which does happen, because, you know, hacker's going to hack and old stuff that works is still good.
Yeah.
You know, once it like hits some threshold of like, ooh, should care about, like I'm positive it'll get kicked off of this deferred list and we'll get the normal thing. Like if you look at the cadence today of NVD, like they're pretty quick on things that like are in the news or things that, you know, get.
Yeah, because they just purged 100,000 items from their backlog.
Right.
Well, 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
It might be, Todd, I'm sorry, Convert. Todd, it might be interesting, like, I guess to explain NVD's role in this process. Like, why is NVD a linchpin in a cog in the wheel for this?
A lot of people, especially US government, but a lot of people in general, rely on NVD for things like CVSS scores and, more importantly, CPE strings, which is its own kettle of fish. CPE is the common product enumeration. So it's like nominally a machine readable way to say what a software is, but it has its own issues, whatever. But they rely on NVD for things like CVSS, which tells you things about severity, right? And NVD has made it their business to like pull in CVEs and then produce CVEs with CVSS scores. One could argue this is happening already in a whole other branch of government called CISA, and CISA is doing this today with full enrichment for things going forward. So like you still have this. So the thing is that you have a backlog of thousands and thousands of vulnerabilities that were published with CVE IDs in 2018 and earlier, right? That never got this treatment for whatever reason. And I don't know why, right? Like it just probably didn't hit like a threshold of interestingness or something. I don't know how they were choosing before. Like it's weird to me that there was a bunch in 2018 for starters.
When NVD does that evaluation, are they a primary source? Like they have to get the software, they have to exploit it. Like how do they make those assessments?
There's no way they're doing that. It's impossible.
Right. So that's what I'm wondering, like, how much of this is...
From what I know of NVD's process, it is an NVD analyst, very similar to like a CISA analyst, looks at the vulnerability, says like, that feels like, you know, access network and no privileges, right? And they base it in almost entirely, not entirely, but like almost entirely on the description of the vulnerability as is presented in the CVE ID.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's be clear. It's not an employee anymore. They outsource this to a contractor for the government that's already been a contractor for the government in other areas. So it actually isn't an NVD employee.
Was that 1 year ago or 2 years ago they did that, Bob?
1 year ago. It was 1 year ago they did that. And I did check. Like they're still a contractor. They're still the ones in theory doing this, unless they've outsourced it to ChatGPT. I have no idea if they have or not. So
I think also it's kind of interesting to think about the consequences of like rejected and deferred being two different things. That was some conversation I saw around this of like deferred implies that you will revisit it at another, like a later date. Like deferred, we're saving this for later. Like we'll get to it eventually, but like rejected, you could say things are rejected because they're invalid, but you could also just say rejected because, like, in the comments of on the Twitch stream, people using bad descriptions, like that could be a really valid reason to reject something. Just like, oh, this submission just sucks. Try again. So I'm wondering if there's discussions at NVD of those types of things, the nuance between deferring and rejecting and all of that.
Yeah, though to like dig into that a little bit. So Sunshine Bill put this thing here. So I've noticed this because I've been writing janky apps that read in information and display information from CVEs for various experiments we're doing at work. And the number of folks that are just like copying and pasting like git diffs and stack traces inside the description, which is not the place for this thing, is just bonkers. It's insane about like there's either a crappy description that doesn't tell you anything, these ones that decide we're just going to paste the source code for something with like little hand pointers to some things, and it's just insane for how that stuff is
And there's
going.
no
So I wanted,
formatting, by the way, inside a CVE description. So stack traces
yeah, I know.
less readable.
Yeah, and some people use HTML, like, so the descriptions are terrible. But one reason why I'm spicy about this today, I mean, and just in general today with the CVEs, but we have a report coming out again based, like, we went through Vulncheck's Kev because it's more extensive than CISA's for reasons that, because CISA has very stringent guidelines for what they can do because they have to have it that way. I completely agree with their guidelines. Vulncheck's is broader, and I agree with their broader definitions. And we care only in this particular case at Gray Noise about the ones that are internet accessible, but basically like initial access vulns coming in. And we are doing a report specifically on vulnerabilities that are pre-2020 vulnerabilities. So we're calling them resurgent vulnerabilities because we like to use fancy words that make people scared. And there's a lot of them. First of all, there's a lot of, I'm not going to ruin the report, but there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them that come up a lot of times. There's some of them that come up some of the times. We have 4 different categories. And there's some zombie ones that just pop up every so often. And if people are waiting for Kev to go back, well, Kev is only going to do it if like a big gov or private whatever critical infrastructure gets hit. If there's no one looking at these things and we're just waiting to see opportunistic activity on the internet for hitting them, like, no offense to everybody, but like, we're the only ones that are going to see those old CVEs that no one cares about because no one's looking at them. And that puts a lot of, I guess hold on. It's putting my like justice thing in place because like I want organizations to be safe. I want Mirai to stop being rebuilt. I want certs to care about some things, and they're not going to do it if the government and other organizations that purportedly are supposed to do something and say we're going to do this really good thing just decide, it's hard. I don't care anymore.
It's an intense.
Sorry, Kimber. Sorry.
Intense rant, Bob. I really appreciated it. I think it's very accurate, but also, Gray Noise is not like. And all of the people who are collecting internet scanning are not the only ones that like see those old vulnerabilities. I mean, because there are SOC analysts out there who like also will see these old vulnerabilities, and like they are the ones that are going to have to figure out that these are things that aren't like applicable to them. Back in the day, I mean, I had like a SOC analyst raise an incident because of some really old, God, what was it? It was like one of those very old Macromedia programs, like back when Flash was Macromedia, like way back in the day.
Awesome.
So like because
right, Kimber, I'm sorry, I feel so old right now. Kimber, thanks for that.
Yeah, right. So because these things are still getting thrown at the internet, just as a whole, I have no idea why. Somebody learning how to scan for the first time, maybe. But the SOC analysts don't have the context for what those vulnerabilities look like, and they have to go search for what it is. Otherwise, an incident gets raised and somebody has to be like, oh, this is just Macromedia, whatever, from literally 2005. It's 20 years old.
Old vulnerabilities are still great for attackers, especially if they're still on your network. 2 things. One, the CISA added CVE 2017 12637, so something from 2017, on March 19th of this year of 2025. So it's still happening, right? Oh, yeah. So, and I would imagine if you go look at that CVE, it probably has an enrichment from NVD because it's been a couple weeks and it's probably in there. And then the other thing is like, of course, CVE identified vulnerabilities are not your only thing that you get to deal with as a defender, right? Like this is all a fraction of the kind of all the other stuff, right? Like the things that will never get CVEs, like misconfigurations and stuff that's accidentally on the internet, software and applications, blah, 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 right?
So what picture does this paint for folks or organizations like that are already up against it trying to patch their things? And now the organization that's in charge of essentially giving identifiers to the things to be patched can't keep up to give the identifier. How are organizations expected to keep up with the actual application of the patching? Much
the
less.
identifiers still exist, right? Like that's still CVE. NVD is not a CVE issuing entity.
Right. It's a
It
CVE.
exists. It's just built
It's-
into so many legacy pipelines.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it just my point is to just paint a picture of just like what defenders and organizations are up against, and I feel like I bring every conversation back to like vendor liability, but like what's the line there when things are so broken so often? So it's like the McFlurry, like it's just broken. The McFlurry machine, it's broken all the time. Like we can't keep it online to fix it. Like how are you supposed to run a business with this situation?
Well, I don't know if we know enough about like when these CVEs were submitted to them for analysis. So if it's a bunch
Okay, that's a fair point.
2005 CVEs that were submitted to them back in 2005, then like literally an entire 21-year-old, those CVEs could like go out drinking next year.
And they should.
Yeah, and they definitely should. They've had a hard life waiting in that queue. But if those were submitted to them like this year, then we have a much bigger problem. So I think NVD didn't tell us like enough information surrounding this situation.
Now I want to know that, because that's a great point, and I've made the assumption that these have just been in the queue forever. Because I'm just going to start deferring all the tickets in our queue, Bob. Sorry, since this is now a SOP, I'm just going to defer tickets.
Well, actually, I think we need a new. I think we need a new actual status for CVEs, since in light of all this, it's IDGAF, because that seems what these people actually think it to be. I do have a question for Todd. I don't. Hold no, I that was snark. I had to do it. I have a question for Todd. I only interrupted because like this is a thing that we've all just glossed over for the past 6 months. We just haven't really dug into it, and like I just want to do this. Like there are some recent CVEs that got a CVE like 2019 identifier, and there's been some 2025 vulnerabilities that got 2024 CVE identifiers. And I know that that's like it doesn't really matter because it's just the identifier, but it sort of does matter now that like we've just had an organization say, we don't care about old vulns anymore. So Todd, is it possible that someone got a block of CVEs in 2017 numbers and they can just do that and sneak it by people now to get to under the wire?
I suppose it's possible. I don't know of any case. I don't know of anyone doing that, but like obviously now we got to go look. But yeah, the year it's
everyone at VulnCon. Where is the origin date and story of these?
Right. Funny story. TLDR. The year part of a CVE identifier may not mean the thing that you think it means.
Yeah, meaningless. Don't think it's that year, because it isn't. Like Glenn and I have been talking about that for like a year.
It is somewhat arbitrary. They get real fuzzy usually around November, December, January, and February. And
it's like new car sales, like new car models.
It is
very similar to that, and you can make argument and like this. It's a whole thing that I got on a high horse about last year at this time at VulnCon. I don't think that there is a new like minted in 2025 trough of like 2018 CVEs, but I haven't looked, so now I gotta look. Thanks.
Yep, you gotta look. I think the last point that I want to make on this is think of your actual ticket queue and think of your issue queue and how many things are in that issue queue from the like genesis of the company or the genesis of the ticket system.
Don't subtweet me, Kimber.
Think about it, and think about if the entire world was submitting things to your ticket queue. Do you at some point declare tech debt like
I declare bankruptcy?
Like does that improve morale upon your team to get shit done? Like,
That's the
maybe-
thing. Like, in my brain, I'm like, would it have been better if they had been kind of taken the approach that our country does to our national debt, where we're just like, oh yeah, one day we'll get to it.
Uncapped.
Or like yeah, I think that the transparency is helpful, but maybe not in this specific case, right? Because or maybe it is, because now the individuals know that basically all of those resources will trickle down to them and they'll have to do more work. But I feel like this will hit like the industries that are already probably the worst off, right? Like in terms of security, like critical infrastructure, healthcare, where you have one or two people who are analyzing these CVEs. And I don't know that I agree. Like it's a complex decision. On the one hand, I'm like, thank you for telling the truth, but on the other hand, I think we needed more details about how exactly this will play out. Like, what will happen when something gets actively exploited from 2009? Like, will we get any support about that?
Yeah. Yep. We
Cool.
could probably
I'm
nerd
leaving
out
that-
about this one forever, I think.
Oh yeah, we will. I'm sure we'll be revisiting this a lot this year as things go.
So if someone found a new vuln in like Flash, would that CVE be 2011? Or would
No,
that be?
because it would be
It
published
should not.
this year.
I have
It
so many
should
questions now.
not must not.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. We are running short on time. Does anyone have a 1-minute explainer for the AI DPRK stuff, or should we postpone that for a week? Yeah, we're postponing it for a week. We're gonna do, because I want to give.
They're doing their thing. They are using AI too.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are, and they're coming for your job, just not in like to replace your job, but maybe to usurp like your credentials and things like that. All right, so
They want to work for you.
You want to talk about the Patchy, Tomcat, and Next.js Sound and Fury.
Yes,
Yeah.
let me find my mute button. Hello. Hi. I'm Todd. I'm your pal from the internet. I wrote a blog on Run Zero. Go check out Run Zero blog. Just Google it. And basically, this was me wondering, like, what happened here with these three acts surrounding Apache Tomcat and Next.js. Act 1 discovered vulnerability, got huge, giant vulnerability or risk scores basically on everything that we use risk scores on. 2, so just a ton of exploitation activity, but not actually exploitation. Because 3, I haven't seen any breaches, and maybe I'm late, but I haven't seen any breach notifications. I haven't seen any SEC filings. I haven't seen anything that's like attributing a real loss to either of these vulnerabilities in Next.js or Patchy Tomcat. And I don't know why, because every sign was pointing to imminent and
Massive.
Obvious disaster. Yeah. And we're still interneting today, And so what was the failure here? And was there a failure? It's basically musing about this, and also incidentally, this was my announce that I was going to VulnCon. So please talk to me about this here.
Because Todd apparently kicks assets and fakes frames. I just noticed that. So yeah, that's
I believe that is a coinage by Jay Steins, who is a pen tester of note. He described me that way once, and I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome!"
I think it fits. I think it fits.
Is that a real hat or is that AI?
That is a real hat.
He has a real hat. It's his hat.
I'm just trying to figure out my judgment level.
And so there's nothing new on the VulnCheck blog, and him and Jay, we covered the thing you did. Is there anything else from your blog that you wanted us to cover today?
Just want to call it a rebrand again because I'm so proud of it.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It'll roll out to platform soon. Trademark. But yeah, go have
before
a look.
RSA, probably before RSA. I'm guessing.
No comment.
Okay, there you go. Fine. I will put down.
She said soon, Bob. What else do you want?
I know. That's okay. We have a little bloggy up thingy on the DVRs that were involved in some body things the previous couple weeks. Just had like a massive more set of eyes looking at them, like IP addresses from the internet. So hopefully you don't run these DVRs. That's unlikely you actually do. Just know that they're going to be co-opted and used in some other way to attack you in some other form. So it's great. Everything is just great.
It's always Mariah.
Always.
Always, Mariah. So well, I didn't get fired yet, so that's a good thing from the show. To where it was today. Any closing comments, Todd? Any recommendations for people to go to sessions at VolCon?
If you're at VolCon, you're almost certainly not watching this webcast. But if you are watching this webcast, like basically anything with EPSS, CVSS, or CVE in the title, which is not all, that is probably about 30% of all the VolCon talks, but those are the ones that I'm targeting. So there's a CNA Bird of a Feather meetup this afternoon that should be already spicy, given our chatting on CrushFTP.
Are you still open to autographs, or
no?
Have you quit signing autographs?
I mean, if you give me like $15, then I'll do it.
Okay.
And and the three of our organizations, again, we will be at ours. We're going to mention that over the next couple of weeks, just because I want to make sure people know to come find us, because we're all like the lots of representatives from the orgs will be there. Lots of cool swag, lots of cool demos. There's a party, I think, or something too. So there's a lot of good stuff going on.
I'll be hanging out at the Great Noise booth at RSA.
Yeah,
we're having Noise Fest. I don't know if it's Noise Fest Junior or Noise Fest adjacent, but another Noise Fest. So
and also remember next.
Yep. I just want to know, will someone dress up as Ghosty this time?
Oh,
that's a great idea. Overwatch, come on, say yes, Overwatch, please. You got time, please.
It's very important.
Nothing from Overwatch. That's okay.
Just put a sheet. Never mind. I didn't think that.
Not a lame ghosty. It's got to be a good ghosty anyway.
Yeah.
And don't forget, next week we have InfoSec Sherpa on to talk to us all about how to stay current and all sorts of other things. Like fun fact, like Tracy got a great background that's really applicable to InfoSec. So I hope you all tune in just to hear about that and how she keeps up with all of these things too, and just how epic and smart she is.
We love transferable skills.
Yeah, it's awesome. We need more of them in this thing. So as we log off for today, remember everyone, in a world where CVEs are constantly very exhausting and North Korean hackers are just trying to climb your firewall, which we didn't get into, always keep your threat umbrellas handy. After all, the best defense against the data breach is like a good pair of pants. It's all about having strong firewalls and no backdoors. Stay patched and not hacked. Take care, everybody.
Bye.